Welcome to Preeminent Test Prep. Today is day 63 out of 90 days. Today I'll be going over the Math with Calculator section of SAT Practice Test 1. If you're following our program, then yesterday you completed SAT Practice Test 1's Math with Calculator section on your own, focusing on pacing, because that's kind of been the theme of the past 2 weeks with the math section, is we're focusing on teaching you guys how to pace. That way we've already kind of covered most of the material and accuracy in the first half of the 90 days. So now we're kind of focusing on moving into that pacing, so we're managing our time better. So what you focused on yesterday was kind of pacing it, question order, obviously. Hopefully you're working also on being efficient and getting to your answer choices. So what today is going to help you do is you can correct your Math with Calculator section, right? Obviously, if you haven't corrected it yet, you'll be able to do that now because I'll go through, give you the correct answers and things like that. The other thing that you're going to be able to do is you'll be able to make sure that you're getting to your answer the most efficient way possible, right? As I go through this section, pay close attention to how I'm solving my answers, right? Because I'm obviously going to be solving them, in my opinion, in a very, very efficient way as someone who scored perfectly on the math section 2 times. So pay attention to that, because if I'm solving them in a more efficient way than you are, you're going to want to make sure that you kind of adopt that strategy that I'm using to solve them, because it'll save you time, and saving time is very, very important on the Math with Calculator section. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started in about 10 seconds here. So as far as things to pay attention to, just try to have a notebook out. Obviously have your workout from yesterday so you can correct it, make sure that you were doing things correctly. Anything you got incorrect, make sure you pay attention and figure out why you got it wrong. And with that, let's go ahead and get started right now. Okay, so time has started. I got 55 minutes here. So we got John runs at different speeds as part of his training program. The graph shows his target heart rate at different times during his workout. On which interval is the target heart rate strictly increasing, then strictly decreasing? Okay, a strict increase would be that, strict decrease would be that. So I'm looking for something without a plateau. I see I have that right here. I see that that's going to be from 40 to 60. So my answer there is going to be B for number 1. Okay, now I move on to question number 2. Question 2, we've got y equals kx. K is a constant, y is 24, so I'll plug in 24 for y. So I got 24 equals kx. I'm told that x is 6, therefore 24 equals k times 6. What's the value of y when x is 5? Well, let's go ahead and solve for 6. So we divide each side, or I'm sorry, solve for k by dividing by 6. Okay, so k then is going to equal 24 over 6. We know that 24 divided by 6 is going to give us 4, so k is 4. So now we're going to have to solve for y when x is 5. We know k is 4, so we're going to have y is equal to 4 times x, which is 5, which means that y is going to equal 20, so our answer for number 2 is going to be C. All right, question 3. Question 3, I've got 2 sets of lines, or I guess 4 sets of lines. We've got lines L and M, they're parallel, S and T are parallel. If measure of angle 1 is 35 degrees, so we can go ahead and put in 35 degrees there. What is the measure of angle 2? Okay, well I see that this measure of 35 degrees here corresponds to this measure of 35 degrees, which corresponds to this measure of 35 degrees. Now I see that this whole half circle here has to add to 180, so I just take measure 2. I say that my measure 2 plus 35 degrees has got to equal 180. I subtract 35 degrees from each side. Okay, subtract 35 degrees from each side. That's going to leave me with 145 equals angle 2. So my answer there is going to be D. Okay, that one right there is just understanding vertical angles and understanding corresponding angles. So question 3, answer there is going to be D. Question 4, if 16 plus 4x is 10 more than 14. Okay, we're going to want to write this in equation form. So we got 16 plus 4x is 10 more plus 10 than 14. Okay, it's 10 more than 14. It's 10 more than 14. Okay, so 14 plus 10 is equal to 14 plus 10. Right, it's 10 more than whatever 14 is, which means we have to add 10 to that 14 there. What's the value of 8x? Okay, well, if we're going to solve for 8x, what we can do here is we can subtract 16 from each side. So we do that. We have 14 plus 10. We know that that's going to give us 24. 24 minus 16 is going to give us 8. 8 is equal to 4x. At this point, we're asked to solve for 8x. We know that 4x times 2 gives us 8x, so we multiply this 8 by 2 as well, and that's going to give us 16 equals 8x. Okay, so our answer there is going to be C for number 4. All right, now we got question 5. Okay, we've got which of the following graphs best shows a strong negative association between D and D? Between D and T, a strong negative association will look like this, with the dots very, very close together. Okay, close together and downward sloping. So B is wrong. A would be weak. A is a weak negative association. C is a strong positive, and D is a strong negative. So our answer there is going to be answer choice D. That's a strong negative association right there. So that was question 5. Question 5, our answer is going to be D. Question 6. Okay, question 6. We've got 1 decagram equals 10 grams, 1,000 milligrams equals 1 gram. A hospital stores one type of medicine in 2 decagram containers. Based on the information given in the box above, how many 1 milligram doses are there in one 2 decagram container? Okay, well, we're solving for the number of milligrams then in 2 decagrams. We know that 1 decagram is 10 grams, so 2 decagrams then must be 20 grams. So we have 20 grams. We know that there are 1,000 milligrams per 1 gram. So if we have 20 grams, we must have then 20,000 milligrams. Okay, so our answer there would be 20,000. So our answer is D for number 6. All right, question number 7. We've got rooftop solar panel installations in 5 cities. The number of rooftops with solar panel installations in 5 cities shown in the graph above. If the total number of installations is 27,500, what's an appropriate label for the vertical axis? Well, that 27,500 has to be the sum of all of our bar graphs. Okay, I see that I have 5 bar graphs. I've got an average right around here of right around 5 or 6, right? So if I was going to multiply that 5 by 5, that would get me right around that 27,500, right? So we're going to have to be doing 5 times right around 5,000 then, right? So that's going to have to be 5, and then this right here would have to be in thousands, okay, in thousands. Because we'd have 9,000 plus 5,000 plus 6,000 plus 4,000 plus 3,000, that's going to give us right around that 27,000. So our answer there is going to have to be answer choice C. All right, now we got question 8. So for what value of n is n minus 1 plus 1 equal to 0? Okay, that's never going to happen. Why is that? Because we have absolute value, minimum 0. 0 plus 1 is always going to be at least 1, so it can't ever equal 0. So the answer is D. There's no such value of n. All right, question number 9. All right, we've got a series of questions. Okay, I see immediately that we're just solving for t in this one. So that's all I'm going to do here. I'm not going to read this yet because I don't need to. So I'm going to have a minus 1,052 to get rid of that. Okay, so I have a minus 1,052. At that point, I got to divide each side by 1.08 to solve for t. So dividing each side by 1.08. So this right here would be my answer. Let's go ahead and find which one has that. I see that that's going to be A for number 9. So 9 answer there is going to have to be A. All right, now we got question 10. Let's see if we are going to end up having to read or not. So question 10 says, at which of the following air temperatures will the speed of sound wave be closest to 1,000 feet per second? Okay, I see that temperature is going to be T. Okay, so at what temperature is the speed of a wave in feet per second going to equal? I believe it said 1,000. I'll quick double check. Okay, it did say 1,000, so we just solve for T now. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to have to subtract 1,052 from each side again. So subtracting 1,052. Or actually what we can go ahead and do is we can actually use our equation we had right here at 9. Okay, so we want to solve for our temperature when A is 1,000. So we have 1,000 then, minus 1,052 over 1.08. We can just plug that in the calculator real quick. So that's what we'll do. That's going to give us negative 52 all over 1.08. And that will give us a negative 48.14, which was really negative 48.15 when we round. Okay, so we got negative 48.1, that's going to round to B. Okay, so negative 48.1, that's going to round to negative 48. Our answer there is going to be B. All right, now we got question 11. Okay, which of the following numbers is not a solution of this inequality? Well, if we take a look at this inequality, right, we can go ahead and solve for x because it has that little equal sign right there. So we'll go ahead and subtract 3x from each side, get rid of 3x. Okay, that's going to give us x right here. We add 3 to each side to get rid of that there. So now we have 5 plus 3. That's going to give us or negative 5 plus 3, which is negative 2. So we're going to have x has got to be less than or equal to negative 2, right? So which is not a solution then? That's going to be A. Okay, key part here is not a solution. Only one that's not a solution is A, which is negative 1. So question 11, answer there is A. Now we got question 12. Okay, question 12. The number of seeds in each of 12 apples. We've got our number of apples on our y-axis. We've got our number of seeds on our x-axis. Based on the histogram above of the following, which is closest to the average or the arithmetic mean number of seeds per apple? All right, well, if I take a look at this, I see that my to solve for my mean, what I have to do is I have to multiply. Hang on, my arm got stuck right there. All right, we've got our number of apples multiplying it by number of seeds. That's going to give us 6 right there. Then we're going to have this 5 right here multiplying by 4 right there. That's going to give us 20. Okay, then we're going to have 6 times 1, that's 6. 7 times 2, that's 14. And then a 9 times a 3, which is a 27. So we're going to go ahead and add all of that up. So we'll go ahead and add all of that up in our calculator. We know that 6 plus 14 is 20. So we have 20 plus another 6 plus another 20 and then plus 27. So that gives us 73. Okay, now the next thing that I look at, so we have 73 total apples, or number of 73 total seeds. Now we go ahead and divide that by our number of apples, which we see is 12. Okay, so our answer is going to be 73 over 12. When we round that, that's going to give us 6.08. So rounded, that's going to be 6. Okay, so our answer there is going to have to be C for number 12. All right, so question 12 had answer choice C. Now we can go ahead and move on to question 13. Answer was C there. We've got question 13. So we've got a group of 10th grade students. We have a table here. It's talking about the math course they're currently enrolled in. Surveys broken down into the table. What categories accounts for approximately 19% of all the survey respondents? Well, if we have a total of 310, we just multiply that 310, multiply it by 0.19 to solve for the number of people. Plug that in a calculator. That's going to give us 58.9. So that's going to be right around 59. So we find 59 at males in geometry. So our answer there is going to be males taking geometry, which is C for number 13. So our answer for 13 is going to be C. Now we can go ahead and move on to question 14. So we have the lengths of fish in inches. We have a table listing the lengths to the nearest inch of a sample of 21 brown bullhead fish. The outlier measurement of 24 inches is an error. Which of the following mean, median, range will change the most if that 24-inch measurement is removed? Well, we know since this 24 is our maximum, and it's our maximum by a total of 8, right, going from 16 to 24, that range then is going to decrease by 8. Now the median will barely change since obviously it's going to be that center measurement. Same with the mean, it will barely change as well, but that range will change the most. So our answer there is going to be C for number 14. All right, now we got question 15. Question 15 is paired with 60. We have total cost of renting a boat by the hour, total cost y-axis time x-axis. What does the c-intercept represent in the graph? Well, that's going to have to be our initial cost of renting that boat, right? Anytime we have cost on the y-axis, our intercept where x is 0 is going to have to be our initial cost. In this case, that's the initial cost of renting a boat. So that's going to be answer choice A for 15. All right, now we got question 16. Question 16 says, which of the following represents the relationship between H and C? Well, I see I have a y-intercept of positive 5, which means that answer choice A and answer choice D are wrong. I see I am increasing from 5 to 8, so that's an increase of 3 when I run over 1. So that's going to be 3h as my slope. So my answer there is going to be C for number 16. Key part there is paying attention to the units on that x-axis. Okay, so 16, answer there is going to be C. Now we got question 17. So the complete graph of the function f is shown in the xy plane above. For what value of x is the value of f of x at its minimum? Okay, we see f of x reaches its minimum right here, which is going to be at the value of x of -1 here, -2 here, -3. Okay, so our answer there is going to be B. So 17, answer there is B. Now we got question 18. Keep in mind, after question 18, we go through 19 to 22, looking for one that's difficult. If we find one that's difficult, then then we'll go ahead and transition over to the free response. So we have in the xy plane, if 0, 0 is a solution to the system of inequalities above, which of the following relationships between A and B must be true? Well, we're going to plug in 0 and 0 here. Okay, so if 0 has to be greater than positive B, then we know that B is going to have to be negative. Okay, so B has to be negative. We see that we plug in 0 and 0 up here. We know then that A is going to have to be positive. So A is going to be positive, B has to be negative. Okay, if A is positive and B is negative, then A has to be greater than B. So our answer for 18 is going to be A. All right, question 19. A food truck sells salads for $6.50 each and drinks for $2 each. Okay, we'll put that that's an S. I'm going to put 2 slashes through it just because otherwise it can look like a 5. All right, so we've got food truck's revenue from selling a total of 209 salads and drinks. 209 is equal to our number of salads plus our number of drinks. In one day was $836.50. Okay, how many salads were sold that day? So we're solving for S, which in this case I label as a $sign. And let me get a drink here real quick because my throat's real dry. Okay, so we're solving for S here, right? So in order to solve for S, what we need to do is we need to get D equal to 209 minus S equals D, right? We do that by subtracting S from each side. Okay, once we do that, we can substitute that in for D. So now we're going to have 2 times 209 minus S. Okay, we do that, we have to distribute our 2, obviously. And what we're going to end up with then is we're going to end up with minus 2S plus the 6.5S, which will leave us with 4.5S. So 4.5S. And then 2 times 209 will give us 418, so plus 418. Okay, we subtract 418 from each side to get rid of it. Okay, subtracting 418 from each side, subtracting 418. Now, I'm going to move down so you can see this better. So now we're going to have 4.5s is going to equal 836.5 minus 418. I believe that's going to leave me with 418.5. That one I just did without a calculator. So then what I'm going to do at that point is I'm going to divide each side by 4.5, solve for s. So divide each side by 4.5, we're solving for s. Plug that in my calculator, so that's 418.5, divide it by 4.5, and that's going to leave me with 93. So my answer there is going to have to be 93 for my number of sales. So that's answer choice B. Okay, so 19, answer there is going to be B. Now we can go and move on to 20. Okay, we've got Alma buying a laptop at a computer store. I gave her a 20% discount off its original price. The total amount she paid to the cashier is P dollars. So she's paying P dollars. She's getting 20% off our original price. So we know that we have to, it looks like we're solving for that original price. So our original price, we know that our original price, which we'll call theta, is getting multiplied by 0.8 because we get a 20% off discount, and then she's paying an 8% sales tax. So then it's getting multiplied by 1.08. That's going to equal the price that she paid. So what we do is we divide each side then by 0.8 times 1.08, right? Dividing each side by that is going to cancel here, thus leaving us with our original price equaling P over that 0.8 times 1.08 in that denominator. So our answer there is going to be D, right? So 20 answer there is going to have to be D. Now we go and move on to question 21. So we got a table here. Dreams recalled during a week. The table above is produced by a sleep researcher studying the number of dreams people recall when asked to record their dreams for a week. Group X consisted of 100 people who observed early bedtimes. Group Y consisted of 100 people who observed later bedtimes. A person's chosen at random from those who recalled at least one dream. Okay, keep in mind at least one dream is going to be all the way over here, including 5 or more. Okay. Then we have what's the probability that the person belonged to group Y? Well, we see that group Y here, that total is going to be 11 plus 68, which will give us 79. Okay, so there's 79 people in group Y out of a total of those who recalled at least one dream. We got 28 plus 57. That's going to give me 65 plus 20. That's going to give me 85. Okay, and then we just add 85 and 79. So we're going to have 79 over 85 plus 79. I know that that's going to give me not 100, but 164 then. So my answer there is going to have to be C for number 21. All right, now we've got question 22. Keep in mind, since it's a paired question like this, if it's a paired question at 22, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump down. Okay, so normally I would wait till answering 22 to jump down to questions 31 through 35, but if it's paired with 23, then I'm just going to go ahead and jump down like this. Okay, Wyatt can husk at least 12 dozen ears of corn per hour and at most 18 dozen ears of corn per hour. Based on this information, what's the possible amount of time and hours it could take Wyatt to husk 72 dozen ears of corn? Well, that's going to be 72 dozen ears of corn divided by the rate at which he's doing it, which in this case is any number. It can be anything from 12 to 18. In this case, I'm going to pick 12 because I know 72 over 12 is going to give me, I believe, 6. Yep, it will give me 6. So then my answer there, for a possible number of hours that it could take him to husk this many would be 6. So my answer for 31 will be 6. At this point, I can go ahead and move on and answer question 32. So I've got the posted weight limit for a covered bridge is 6,000 pounds. So I've got 6,000 pounds as my limit. So I have to have something that is less than that. Delivery truck carrying X identical boxes, each weighing 14 pounds, will pass over the bridge if the combined weight of the empty driver and the empty truck and the driver is 4,500 pounds. What's the maximum possible value for X that will keep the combined weight below the posted limit? Okay, I'm going to subtract 4,500 from each side here. You can kind of see that I just set up an equation for the total weight set equal to the weight of the truck and the driver. So now we're going to have 1,500 then must be greater than or equal to 14x. At that point, I'm dividing each side by 14. Keep in mind, I'm going to have to round down because I can't round up when I do this, right? So 1,500 over 14, I plug that in my calculator, and that's going to give me 107.1. I have to round down because if I round up, I'm going to be over my weight limit. So my answer there is going to have to be 107. All right, question 33. See, I have a graph. According to the line graph, the number of portable media players sold in 2008 is what fraction sold in 2011. Well, in 2008, I have 100, and in 2011, I see that I've got, right, pretend that's a straight line, I've got 160. Okay, so my fraction of those sold in 2011, I split this 0, right? I can take that 0 away. Scroll down. Okay, I can get rid of those zeros by cross-canceling. I have 10 over 16 then. 10 over 16 is going to equal 5 over 8, so my answer there is going to be 5 over 8. All right, now I've got question 34. Local television selling time slots for 30-minute intervals. They operate 24 hours a day, every day a week. What's the total number of 30-minute time slots the station can sell for Tuesday and Wednesday? Well, we're selling 30-minute time slots for 2 days. We know that we have 24 hours per day, so 24 hours per day. Okay, we know that we're selling them in half an hour intervals. So then we divide by that 1/2 hour interval. So divide it by 1/2 hour intervals, right? When we divide by a fraction, we flip it and multiply. So that's the same as multiplying by then 2. When we do that, we're going to get a total of 48 commercials or slots. We'll call them TS for time slots per day. We know that we have 2 days. Therefore, we have 48 time slots per day times 2 days. We know our number of days will cancel. We'll have 48 times 2, which will give us 96 as our number of time slots. So 96 would be our answer for 34. All right, at this point we've got question 35. Keep in mind after 35 we're looking at 36 through 37 and 38, seeing if anything's difficult. If anything is, we go back to the multiple choice section. So we have a dairy farmer using a storage silo that's in the shape of a right circular cylinder above. If the volume is 72 pi cubic yards, what's the diameter of the base of the cylinder in yards? Okay, volume of a silo right, or volume of a right circular cylinder is going to be volume is going to equal pi r squared times height. We know our height is 8 yards, right? So we can go ahead and plug that in for h. We know that our volume is going to equal 72 pi, so we'll put that in for volume. We know that our pi's are going to cancel when we divide each side by pi. Okay, they cancel. We know that we're going to have r squared then times 8, so we'll divide each side by 8. Get rid of that. 72 over 8, that's going to give me 9. Okay, so that's going to give me 9 equals r squared. 9 equals r squared, square root each side, and that's going to give me 3 equals r. Okay, so 3 would be my radius. Keep in mind I'm solving for my diameter. My diameter is equal to 2 times my radius then, so my diameter is going to have to be 6 for number 35. All right, now I've got question 36. If it looks difficult, I'm going to skip it. Okay, in this case, I'm asked for the value of x for which the function is undefined. I know that that's where my denominator equals 0, so this one shouldn't be too difficult, so I'm going to go ahead and solve it. So what I'm going to do here is I set it equal to 0, and now I'm just solving for what value of x is undefined, so I'm just solving for x then. Okay, so at this point I see I'm going to have plus 4x here, and then a minus 20 there, because 4 times negative 5 is minus 20. So now I'm going to have a minus 20 plus 4, so minus 20 plus 4. I see I'll have a negative 5 times a negative 5, which will give me plus 25. Okay, so that's going to be positive 25 minus 20, that's going to give me positive 5, plus 4, that's going to give me 9, so I'm going to have a 9 there. Okay, now what about my x term? I'm going to have 4x from right there, and then I'm going to have an x squared. Okay, from this x minus 5 squared, this x minus 5 squared, I know that that's going to end up giving me x squared minus 10x, right? And then I already dealt with my constants. So I know I'm going to have a minus 10x from this term here. I have a positive 4x here. Minus 10x plus 4x is going to give me minus 6x. Okay, and then I have an x squared, obviously, right there. At this point, all I got to do is factor. I'm looking at factors of 9 that add to negative 6. I know that that's going to be x minus 3 times x minus 3, which is x minus 3 squared. So my only possible answer then would be 3. Okay, so answer for 36 then is going to be 3. So that one right there, not too difficult. I look at 37. 37, we got a short statement here, looking like a dealing with a financial model. Pretty easy. So we're going to go ahead and do that one. Jessica opened a bank account that earns 2% interest compounded annually. Her initial deposit was $100. She uses this expression to find the value of the account after T years. What's the value of X? Okay, the value of X is going to be 1.02 because she's earning 2% interest compounded annually. Okay, that 2% interest means we're multiplying her initial amount by 1.02 every year, so the value of X is 1.02. That one right there, very, very easy for being number 37. Number 38, Jessica's friend Tayshawn found an account that earns 2.5% interest compounded annually. Tayshawn deposited $100 initially in his account, same time Jessica made her deposit. After 10 years, how much more money will Tayshawn's initial deposit have earned than Jessica's initial deposit? Keep in mind, we're looking for the difference between the two. Rounding to the nearest cent, ignoring dollar sign. All right, well, Tayshawn, right, he is earning, he put in $100, he's earning 2.5% interest, so his will be multiplied by 1.02 5, because he's earning 2.5% interest, raised to the 10th power, because they're each having 10 years. We're looking for the difference between the two, so we're going to go ahead and subtract then that difference between the two. Okay, keep in mind t is 10 years, so we're going to raise that to the 10th. At that point, we just plug that in our calculator. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. Okay, I plug that in my calculator. I'm still plugging it in my calculator. Okay, that's going to give me 6.109. When I round that to the nearest cent, that is going to give me 6.11. So my answer there will be 6.11. So that's a 6. We have 6.11 there. So that one right there, also not too difficult, which is why we went ahead and answered it. So at this point, we roll back, and we're going to answer the rest of our multiple choice. So keep in mind, we left off at 22 because it was a paired question, right? If we're going to pair 22 with 23, then at that point is when we're going to jump to our free response. All right, we got annual budgets for different programs in Kansas from 2007 to 2010. Which of the following best approximates the average rate of change in annual budget for agriculture/natural resources from 2008 to 2010? Keep in mind, this is average rate per change per year, and that's a 2-year period from 2008 to 2010. So we have here to here. We know that that's going to be a difference of just about 130,000, it looks like. So we're going to have 130,000. Okay, keep in mind that that's split over 2 years, so that's going to be right around 65,000. Okay, so 65,000. Now, the thing is that we are dealing in, it looks like we're dealing in, it says thousands of dollars down here, okay? Generally, I'd be looking for that to be somewhere in the table, but in this case, they're telling me that that's thousands of dollars down there. So it'd be 65,000 times 1,000. So something like 65 million then. So 65 million, I see that as answer choice B for number 22. So 22 then, my answer there is going to have to be B. All right, now I got question 23. Of the following, which program's ratio of its 2007 budget to 2010 budget is closest to the HR department's 2007 to 2010 budget? So HR, their 2007 budget is 4 million. Their 2010 budget is about 6 million. So I see that that's a ratio of 2/3. So I'm looking for another one that is a ratio of 2/3. Now another thing I'm looking at, right, is obviously going from 4 to 6. I'm multiplying by 1.5. So I'm just looking for something where I multiply by 1.5. I take a look at agriculture and natural resources. If I was to multiply by 1.5, I'd be adding on right around 190,000. I see I'm only adding on about 110. So that one's not a good ratio. Education, I see that I'd be adding on about 1.08 million. And I see that I do add on that about that much. So that one right there is a pretty good option. That's just about 2/3. Let's see if there's anything better. General government, that's not even close to an increase of 1.5x. Highways and transportation, also not even close. Public safety, that's more of a double, so that one's also not close. So my closest then would be education. So let's go ahead and scroll down and see if we have education as an option. We see that we do, so our answer for 23 would be B. All right, now we got question 24. Okay, I'm guessing I got a circle equation. I do. Okay, so which of the following is an equation of a circle in the xy plane with center 0, 4 and radius with this endpoint? Okay, so to solve for the radius, we're going to have to use these two pairs of points. Now keep in mind our equation for a circle. I'll quickly remind you, our equation for a circle is going to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, so our radius, we see that we start at 0, so we got 0.04. I'll quick draw this on a graph so you can see it. We've got 0, and I've got 4 up here. Okay, so this is our first point. That's our center. Now we have a 0.5 as our y. Okay, so we got over and up 1, since that's our fifth. Okay, and we know that that point is 4/3 and 5. So 4/3 and 5. So we're increasing by 1, going from that 4 to that 5 in our y. Now we are also moving over by 4/3. So if we're going to solve for our radius, we have to solve for that hypotenuse, right? So we know that we can use our Pythagorean theorem, which tells us that that 4/3 squared, plus that 1 squared, which we can rewrite that, right, and keeping that as thirds, we can rewrite that as 3/3 squared, since 3/3 is 1. And we know that that's going to give us our radius squared then, since our radius is this hypotenuse. Now keep in mind, we don't have to solve for the radius, we just have to solve for the radius squared. So what we're going to do then is we're going to apply the square over to that 4 and over to that 3. Okay, so we're going to end up with 16 over 9 plus 9 over 9. We can go ahead and add those since they have a common denominator, and that'll give us 25 over 9 equals our radius squared. We see our options with 25 over 9 are A and B. At that point, we just have to determine then our only difference, which is a positive versus a negative there. We know that since our center has a positive y value for its center. We know it's going to have to be minus, so our answer there is going to have to be A for number 24. All right, question number 25. We've got an expression here. We're modeling the height of a ball t seconds after it's launched vertically upward from the ground with an initial velocity of 25 meters per second. After approximately how many seconds will the ball hit the ground? Well, it's going to hit the ground when the height is 0, okay, because the height at the ground is 0. So we're just solving for t then. Well, I see I can go ahead and factor out, a t there. So I'll factor out a t. We're going to have 0 equals t times negative 4.9 t plus 25. Okay, at this point, I can go ahead and take that negative 4.9 t, set it equal then to that negative 25, since obviously we'd be moving that positive 25 over when we set it equal to 0. We divide each side then by negative 4.9. Dividing each side by negative 4.9, we see that that's going to give us right around 5 when we plug that into our calculator. So our answer there is going to be D. That question right there is 25. All right, now we've got question 26. So Katerina is a botanist studying the production of pears by 2 types of pear trees. She noticed that type A trees produce 20% more pears than type B trees produced. So if type A is producing 20% more than what type B is produced, we can write that as this expression here. Based on Katerina's observation, if the type A trees produce 144 pears, how many pears do the type B produce? Okay, well we know A is 144. We go ahead and set that equal to 1.2 times B, divide each side by 1.2 to solve for B. Okay, and then we just plug that in our calculator. Plugging that in our calculator is probably going to give us 120, I do believe, and it will give us 120. So our answer then is going to have to be answer choice B for number 26. Okay, so that one right there is not too difficult. Next up, we've got a fairly long word problem. At this point, we've already answered all of our free response, so it's really our best move. At this point, we have so much time left as well that we can just kind of go ahead and do 27. A square field measures 10 meters by 10 meters. 10 students mark off a randomly selected region of the field. Each region is a square, has side length of 1 meter. No 2 regions overlap. Students count the earthworms contained in the soil to a depth of 5 centimeters beneath the ground surface in each region. The results are shown in the table below. Which of the following is a reasonable approximation of the number of earthworms to a depth of 5 centimeters? Number of earthworms to a depth of 5 centimeters beneath the ground surface in the entire field. All right, well, we know that our sample up here, right, we know that it's in a square field of 10 meters by 10 meters. So 10 meters times 10 meters is going to give us an area then of 100 meters squared, or 100 square meters. We know that each of these regions is 1 square meter, right? It's 1 meter by 1 meter, or 1 square meter. Now we see that the average, right, we don't have to calculate it exactly, and the reason we don't have to calculate it exactly, obviously, is because all of these are factors of 10. All of our answer choices are factors of 10. They all contain 15. We're going to see our average is right around 150 worms, so I'll put worms as W per meter squared. We multiply that by our 100 meters squared. Okay, when we do that, meters squared is going to cancel, and we're going to have 150 times 100 earthworms, and that is going to give us 15,000 earthworms. So our answer there is going to be answer choice C, 15,000 earthworms. So 27, answer there is going to be C. That one right there is not too difficult. It's just understanding that shape, understanding your area. All right, question 28. If the system of inequalities above is graphed in the xy plane, which quadrant contains no solutions? Okay, our first one, y is greater than 2x plus 1. We know 2x plus 1. We can call that right there 1. So positive y-intercept. It's going up because it's 2x as its slope. So it'd be something like this. Now y has to be greater than it. So I'm going to go ahead and shade that in. We'll do some highlighting to shade that in, right? Y's got to be greater than it. So its solutions potentially would be right there. The next thing that we have is a equation y must be greater than a half x minus 1. So we'll have a minus 1 right here, increasing by a half x, which is going to be a much slower slope, right? Much less, more gradual incline. Okay, and we know that y has to be greater than that as well. Okay, so y's got to be greater than that. So potential solutions then. Potential solutions if y's got to be greater than this right here. We see that y must be greater than 2x plus 1, y must be greater than 1 half x minus 1, which contains no solutions. Well, we know that there's going to be some solutions in quadrant 3, right? We see that. I'll mark that in green. Okay, quadrant 3 would have solutions right there. We know in quadrant 2 we're going to have solutions right here, right? That's obviously greater than both of those. And we see then in quadrant 1 we also have solutions where it's greater than both of those, like right here, right? If we were to extend this line out more, you'd see that we'd have solutions right there as well. So the only part that's not going to have solutions to both of them is going to be this quadrant 4, right? Because at no point does this line right here that I'm putting in green now, at no point does it have a solution in quadrant 4. So our answer there is going to be C for number 28. All right, now we've got question 29. Okay, we have a polynomial. Value of p of 3 is -2, which the following must be true about p of x. Okay, anytime that we're given a question like this, if it were to say is equal to 0, we'd be looking at it as a factor. Since it's not set equal to 0, we can't say it's a factor, so A, B, and C are going to be wrong, and our answer is going to have to be D. Right, the remainder when p of x is divided by x minus 3 is going to be -2. Okay, that one right there is just understanding. Quickest way to understand it, quickest way to get to your answer is understanding. If it's going to be a factor, then that value would have to be 0. Okay, so since it doesn't say 0, it can't be a factor. Answer is going to have to be D. That's the quickest way to understand that. Which of the following is an equivalent form of the equation shown in the graph above, from which the coordinates of vertex A can be identified as constants? All right, well, my vertex, if I look at this graph, I see that it's going to be at 1, and it looks to be -16. Okay, that's what it's looking like. So I'm going to take a look, find an answer choice that has that. Now keep in mind they have to be as constants. I see that I have a 1 right here as a constant, and I have a -16 right here as a constant. No other place do I have a -16 as a constant, or a 1 as a constant. So my answer is going to have to be D. That one right there is pretty simple as well. All right, so at that point it looks like we've answered all of our questions. So there's really nothing that we really had any problems with. I think the only question that I might have hesitated on, I think, was number 4, ironically, which is supposed to be one of the easier ones. So at this point, obviously, if you've watched my pacing videos before, what I would do is I'm going to go through, I'm going to match my answer sheet, or my quote-unquote bubble sheet, to what I have in my test booklet to make sure that they all match up. Now, that's because I don't have any problems that I think I got wrong or anything like that, so there's really nothing to work on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check that bubble sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and account for that time right here. Okay, so I'm going to have 1B, I'm going to have 2C, I'm going to have 3D, I'm going to have 4C, I'm going to have 5D, I'm going to have 6D, I'm going to have 7C, I'm going to have 8D, I'm going to have 9A, I'm going to have 10B, I'm going to have 11A, I'm going to have 12C, I'm going to have 13C, I'm going to have 14C, I'm going to have 15A, I'm going to have 16C, I'm going to have 17B, I'm going to have 18A, I'm going to have 19B, I'm going to have 20D, 21C, 22B, 23B, 24A, 25D, 26B, 27C, 29 or 28C, 29D, 30D, 31, 6, 32, 107, 33, 5 over 8, 34, 96, 33, 6, 36, 3, 37, 1.02, 38, 6.11. Okay, so at that point I've gone ahead and I've checked to make sure everything in my answer sheet matched what was in my test booklet. So at this point what I'd be working through is any problems that I was unsure of. In this case I'm sure of all my problems, so that's really, there's nothing I could do there, right? Any problems that you had to guess on or that you didn't know the answer to, at this point this is what you'd be working on with that. Now I finished with right around 20 minutes left. So that was obviously ideal for the amount of time I want to have left. That means I didn't necessarily rush it, but at the same time I wasn't going slow either. Okay. So obviously I just checked, I'm really just following the same procedure I've outlined before. So there's no problems that I was unsure of or had to guess on. So the next thing I'd be doing is any problems that I had starred as needing to check my work. In this case there were none that I starred. So the next thing I'd be doing is any problems I hesitated on. Okay, only one I really hesitated on was right here, number 4. And that was if 16 plus 4x is 10 more than 14. Okay, I see 16 plus 4x is 10 more than 14. So I have that 10 plus 14 there. What's the value of 8x? Well, I subtract 16 from each side. 24 minus 16 is 8. 8 equals 4x. Double 4x to get to 8x, which means I got to double 8 then. Doubling 8 gives me 16. So that one right there is going to be correct as well. Okay, so I just checked that one. So at this point, what I'd go through is I'd just go through and check all my work. So I just start, if I struggled more with the free response section, then I'd start there, and I would go through and check my work. And if I struggled more on multiple choice, then I'd just start at 1 and go through and check my work. Another thing I'd do is if there was any questions on means and medians, then those would also be ones I'd want to focus on checking my work, because if I put one thing wrong in my calculator, I could get those wrong. So I'm actually going to go try to find any question that talk about mean or median, because those ones are ones where you can get them wrong pretty easily if you end up putting something in your calculator wrong. So here's one right here, number 12. This one's talking about finding that arithmetic mean. Okay, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply my 3 by 2 since this is too high. That's going to give me 6. I'm going to multiply my 5 by 4. That'll give me 20. Multiply my 6 by 1. That's going to give me 6. Multiply 7 by 2. That's going to give me 14. Multiplying 9 by 3 is 27. I'm going to go ahead and add all of those up. I'm going to get 26 from those two. 26 plus 6 gives me 32. 32 plus 14 is going to give me 46. 46 plus 27. I'll put that in my calculator. 46 plus 27. That's going to give me 73. So I'll have 73. I see I have 12 apples in total. Divide it by 12. That's going to give me 6. I believe it was 6.08. I'll plug it in my calculator. Just double check. 6.083. Rounding that one to the nearest closest. Right? It says closest. It doesn't say round up or round down. Just closest. So my answer there would be 6. So that one right there is checked as well. Okay, I believe that was my only mean question. I can just quick double check. I don't think there were any other questions on means or medians as far as I can tell. So that one right there would really be the only one that's really glaringly obvious as to one that I could check based on it being a mean or a median. So at this point, what I'd be doing if I were taking this as a real SAT is I'd just be going through, checking as much work as possible. I'm not going to do that here just because I don't really want to just waste your time. I want to be teaching you as much as I can, and me just going through and checking problems. You've already seen me go through these problems in the past, so I don't feel the need to go through and check everything because you've already seen that today. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to kind of take this time to just talk a little bit of strategy, and I'll probably end up ending this video early before that full 55 minutes just because I'm not going to waste your time just kind of babbling on about pacing because you've heard a lot about pacing over the last 2 weeks. So really big things here is just understanding the pacing, right? I talked about pacing procedure before. As long as you understand that, that's really a good place to start with this. If you understand how to pace, that's really going to be helpful. If you, hopefully you saw today kind of how to use certain steps and certain tricks and use kind of the answer choices to cut time and be more efficient. Hopefully that was helpful. But yeah, there's really not much else for me to say today. This pretty much covers most of it. I guess one thing, since I am cutting it short a bit, I'm not going to use the full 55 minutes just because I don't need it. One thing I do want to say is if at any point you have less than 8 minutes left, that's the point when you abandon that bubbling strategy that I talked about in the pacing video, right? Anytime there's less than 8 minutes left, you're not going to want to fill in 3 answer choices like at once on your bubble sheet. You're just going to want to fill it in after every answer you get if you're still working at that point. Okay, because otherwise you could get caught with 3 answers that are correct, but you just run out of time to put them on your answer sheet. So that's just one quick exception to that bubbling strategy that I use is if there's less than 8 minutes left. So I did want to include that since I'm going to be ending today's video a little bit early. Other than that, there's really not much else to say. I think that pretty much covers everything. So as always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. If this video was helpful, there'll be a donation link in the description when it's up and running. Any private SAT tutoring I'm doing will be linked in the description. Any private college admissions consulting I'm doing will be linked in the description. So as always, thank you for watching. Make sure to have a great day.